Will Mark Rogowski, former pro skater turned prison convict, be found suitable for parole this year? It has been 31 years since former pro skater Mark Gator Rogowski tortured, raped, and murdered 21-year-old Jessica Bergsten, the best friend of his ex-girlfriend, Brandy McClain, in March of 1991. 31 years ago, the exact number of years he was sentenced to, plus life. But will he really be released as he desires and live a free man this year by November in 2023? This is the second video I have created about the ex-skater now prison inmate number, and I will not be covering his former professional career or his fame and fortune in this one. Just how likely his chances are of being released from the California State Prison where he lives today, the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility. For more details about his former career and how he brutally took the young life of Jessica, there is an end video link at the end of this one if you wish to view. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're a first-time viewer, I'm happy you found me. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, share, and click the notifications for new content. Again, welcome, and let's get into the story. His motive for killing Jessica, after turning himself in, was that he wanted to exact revenge on his ex-girlfriend by saying that Jessica was the mold that Brandy was made out of. When her family traveled from Arizona to California into San Diego to report their daughter missing to the police and to post flyers wherever they could, especially around the locations of convenience stores, Rogowski confessed to his friend, Augie Constantino, that he killed the girl in the posters that were hanging in the windows of the stores, and Augie urged Mark to turn himself in. Instead of going to trial, he pled guilty. At the plea hearing, Mark submitted a 4-page written statement that was really weird and a bit disturbing. Although he accepted responsibility for Jessica's death, he also admitted that he felt terrible for having sex outside of marriage and for going against the word of God. Like I said in my first video, where in that statement was the part that he felt remorse for causing the brutal death of Jessica. In 1992, he was charged with first-degree murder with special circumstances, meaning that California law states if you murder someone during a rape, that it warrants the death penalty or life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. But since he pled guilty and took a plea deal, he received 31 years to life. And because of the circumstances, the way in which he ended her life, the deal was designed so that he would never see the outside of a prison wall ever again, and what Jessica's family is counting on. But in 2017, California's youth offender parole law passed a new statute that can apply to any persons age 18 to 25 who commit crimes that carry life imprisonment without the chance of parole, now have a chance for eligibility for those serving time in state prisons. The study was based off scientific evidence that claims the part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that is responsible for impulse control isn't fully developed in most people until age 25. The prefrontal cortex is the personality center located in the front part of the brain. It is responsible for our ability to focus, make plans, control impulse and emotions, judgment and insight, and most important, empathy. What dangerous, violent apex-type people and predators without a conscience are lacking. Healthy activity in the prefrontal cortex leads to awareness, thoughtfulness, and a goal-oriented personality. No person during life is perfect at any age, but capable of learning from mistakes. Yet, not everybody commits murder. Prison systems are in place to house criminals, especially murderers. Isn't it bad enough we let violent sex offenders out? And some of them not only reoffend, but up the ante to commit murder, which is exactly what Rogowski and his ridiculous online supporters are petitioning for. They act like he deserves another chance because they believe he learned his lesson. Learned his lesson? It's not like he was caught shoplifting. In reality, if he were any other unknown person who did the same thing, his small, confused support group would be singing a different tune. His celebrity from being a former pro skater is just a mixture of denial and a passion for his past that he is a rehabilitated, violent rapist and killer. His supporters seem to forget or ignore that he brutally took the life of a young, 21-year-old woman whose future he decided to end. I advocate for the victim when I cover true crime stories, so today I am going to ask that if you interact by commenting on this video, to please show respect for the victim's family and friends who may see this content. That study may be true for some young adults, but I strongly disagree when it's applied to a diabolical person like Mark Rogowski. For example, Jennifer Mee, also known as the Hiccup Girl, is currently serving a life sentence with no chance of parole in Florida when in 2010, at age 19, she was involved in a planned robbery attempt with 2 other people that resulted in the death of Shannon Griffin. Her part was to lure Shannon under false pretenses. He believed the 2 were on a date, but he was really being led down an alley to be robbed at gunpoint by the 2 other defendants, LaRon Rayford and Lamont Newton, who claimed it was a robbery gone wrong and that Shannon was shot by accident during the struggle over the gun. Jennifer wasn't even present for the shooting. She professed Shannon's death was never part of the plan, that the 2 friends were only supposed to rob him, and the gun was just an incentive for him to submit. She seemed to be honest in her prison interview with Piers Morgan and admitted that her role in the attempted robbery inadvertently caused the death of Shannon. But it doesn't matter in Florida. If you are involved in a plan to rob someone and that person dies as a result, it's an automatic life sentence without the chance of parole, regardless of whether it was by accident or on purpose, or whether or not you pulled the trigger. Since Jennifer Mee was not the actual shooter, I can understand how the California law for youthful offenders could apply to her case, if that were an option in the Florida legal system. I only used this story briefly to prove a point, that the youthful offender statute in California was designed for felons like Jennifer, not heartless, cold-blooded killers like Mark Rogowski. For more on the Jennifer Mee story, you will have to watch this video until the end, then click on the link to find out why she is known as the Hiccup Girl and the full story that put her in prison, unless you already know. And even if you do, consider watching it anyways. In moving forward with the case about inmate number H27508, both the U.S. Supreme Court and the California Supreme Court recognize that the younger a person is, the more susceptible they are to negative influences and peer pressure. But as that person ages, maturity can lead to reflection that is the foundation for remorse, renewal, and rehabilitation. Therefore, California legislature has determined, with few exceptions, offenders who commit crimes while under the age of 26 and sentenced to state prison are required to have a meaningful opportunity for parole during their natural life. Rogowski tortured and raped 21-year-old Jessica Bergsten for hours in his San Diego apartment. Her death was slow and without mercy. She was struck over the head with a metal steering wheel lock, and to silence her screaming so the neighbors wouldn't hear, he smothered her with his bare hands until she suffocated and died. Then, he zipped her into a surfboard bag to transport her hidden body, undetected and unseen. He then drove her body out to Shell Canyon Desert and disposed her remains in a shallow grave, until some campers discovered her body about 10 weeks later in early April 1991. In 2011, I agreed with the San Diego Deputy District Attorney Richard Sachs, who denied him parole, when he stated that Rogowski remained an unreasonable risk to society. Her family protested his release at the hearing as well. Her father, Stephen Bergsten, said, "The pain never goes away. He received a life sentence, but imposed a death one for Jessica."
That's right. After Mark Rogowski was granted parole last year for a second time, Governor Newsom once again reversed the state parole board's decision to release him.
I was very disappointed. Mr. Rogowski's absolutely earned this.
Laura Shepard served as Mark Rogowski's attorney.
He's just a peace-loving man. He really is. When I realized that feels like cognitive dissonance when you contrast that with the horrificness of his crime.
I wonder what I'll do.
At one time a superstar in the skate scene, the North County resident who went by Gator starred in movies and music videos throughout the 1980s and was sponsored by Vision Skateboard. In 1991, Rogowski admitted to killing Jessica Bergsten, who was a friend of his ex-girlfriend. He abducted her, handcuffed her, and then sexually assaulted her, then bludgeoned her with a metal steering wheel lock.
Placed her inside of a surfboard bag, and while inside the surfboard bag, then strangled her.
His crime is tragic and horrific, but he has done everything a person could possibly do to make amends, to rehabilitate himself, to try to help others inside the prison to see the error of their ways as well.
Including a self-help program he's developed behind bars called Gender Abuse Prevention. In his decision to overturn the state parole board's decision, Governor Newsom wrote that Rogowski has made efforts at self-improvement, but also referenced recent verbal altercations with fellow prisoners, adding that Rogowski must do additional work to understand what led them to act so violently. San Diego County District Attorney Summer Stephan also vehemently opposed Rogowski's release on parole, saying earlier that the victim's loved ones were devastated by the board's decision in June to grant parole, adding the family and friends of Jessica Bergsten deserve the continued promise of justice in this case.
A member of the public, you know, I don't want to waste any more taxpayer money keeping him in prison, and I want to see the good he can do out here.
And Rogowski will be eligible to be considered for parole once again this November in about 10 months' time.
A peace-loving man? His attorney, Laura Shepard, said he is peace-loving. Once an offender like Rogowski is locked up, he's no longer a threat to the outside world to disturb the peace. Really, he's just a wolf in sheep's clothing, living inside of a cage, keeping society out of harm's way. The district attorney was right when she said, Jessica's family and friends deserve the continued promise of justice in this case. And that last remark his attorney made about not wanting to waste any more of the taxpayers' money? Well, just how much did she think Jessica's life was worth? Good grief, we don't put a price tag on our loved ones. As if you can pay your dues in full for murder. Inmates like Mark are worth taxpayers' money to keep Danger locked up. And her legal jargon, if you can call it that, must be a learned trade that some attorneys utilize in the court system, like some warped class they took in law school called How to Bleed Out Empathy for a Murder Victim by ripping the frontal lobe of the brain right out of the student's head. Mark was 24 when he put Jessica through hours of brutality before ending her life. At 24 years of age, or any age for that matter, he knew what he did was wrong but did it anyways. He is a sociopath that can't be fixed. He should feel so lucky to still be alive at 56. Jessica, who missed out on so much, like getting married, starting a family, having a career, whatever she aspired to be before her life was taken, will forever be 21 because of him. After the reversal of his last parole hearing, the San Diego County District Attorney, Summer Stephan, continued further by saying, the family and friends of Jessica Bergsten deserve the continued promise of justice in this case. Our office has a responsibility to argue strongly against releasing this violent defendant. We handle hundreds of parole hearings each year, doing our best when it's appropriate to make sure dangerous criminals are not released and crime victims are given a voice. I couldn't have summed that up any better. I know it's been nearly 31 years since Jessica has physically existed in this world, but to her family and her friends, I stand with you, heart and soul. For new content and breaking news stories, please be sure to click the notifications to follow along and be notified when updates are available. Don't forget to like, comment, and please feel free to share. You can also join my Facebook group for True Crime and History Time and follow me on TikTok and Instagram. My usernames for those platforms are @Jeri Official. And as always, thank you for watching, subscribing, and supporting my channel.